Testing. Hello, testing. Let's see if my audio works. Yep, I hear myself. Always a good sign. Hello, everybody. I was expecting to see or hear Dan. Sorry. Hello, Pepe. Thank you as always. Perfect Circle. What's up? Dan is on vacation. Thank you. Back to testing the breakout on spot. I don't know. I think it could be just a grind higher in the market. I think right off the bat, first thing that comes to my mind is, beautiful, solid saucer pattern, 5-day moving average. We do have a lot of space in between there, however. So, the more space we can kind of keep and the more this 5-day average can start to slope, that would mean, I think, everything's kind of a green light. I have been just, quietly watching the bonds, meaning the Treasury on the daily there. You can see it's trying to pinch above the 20. And then you've got the IEF, which is the 7 and 10. This is more of the mortgage rate type stuff. Look at this, this little this 3 days here in clean air for the 7 to 10-year Treasury. So, I'm not an economist, but I know that there's a lot of pressure right now on the Fed watching the market kind of tell the story, especially the 7 to 10-year rates here that, look, people are buying into this, and that drives rates down. Basic, I know that. So I'm kind of keeping an eye on that. Yes, the geopolitical stuff may be solved. We can get another headline at any moment. And Andy and I and Brian Shannon have been really lamenting the difficulty of a headline market, trading it just when you think you're positioned correctly. You find out you're not, and then you get tested, and then you might get spooked out of a couple things. And that's kind of what's been going on with me. But yeah, to answer your question, Perfect Circle, I don't know if we're going to back test the actual breakout. That doesn't happen very often unless you're in Tesla, which I am. And then in that case, it will back up and test out the breakout pretty handily all the way back to this gap it filled out. Now, I think this was the Austin Robotaxi. Yes, I'm taking Dan's place today, David. I'm not being able to discuss Money Machine other than I can pull a string on my chest and kind of say the same thing. We're getting ready to test it internally in simulation mode. The backend developers are tweaking the plumbing. And so that's where we are. There's no way to throw any dates out there. But I mean, I can say once we've internally tested the simulated part of it, it'll be released in the subsequent beta test for everybody to use. And what that means, it'll be like a basic way to simulate your favorite strategy. So I could take like my favorite short squeeze tree map here and just say, hey, always keep me in the strongest, top 3 short squeezers. So I'm looking forward immensely to testing it, and then I can give you guys some feedback. But at this moment, I don't have much info, especially not dates, other than the stage of where we are internally testing the simulator. And I haven't gotten my hands on it yet. I've gotten all the settings and the server directions and all that set to go on my account. I'm just waiting for the other guys on the back end to turn it on. Yes, I was the one on the Money Machine demo you watched on the site along with Michael. That was an early iteration. A few things have changed since then. A few concepts have changed and made it more rich and complex when it does come out. That's the current status. Good point. Mr. Kamal, that's a good point. That's the current status, and we recognize the value in the marketing. The users are screaming, and rightfully, I get it, especially if you're a newer trader. You'd like to be able to leverage the technology to leapfrog a learning curve and just drop right into some sort of a template, that we know is decent. And then from there, it comes down to, your settings as well. The strategy is set, but your settings, like, do I want to risk 2%, 2.5%? Do I want my target to be 5%? That'll come up to you. So yeah, we'll give you the launching pad, which right now you kind of have to build your own launching pad, and we get that. So that's why it's taking a little longer, because it was a proof of concept, and then it turned from a proof of concept to, wow, we could really make this a lot more universally palatable for people to control what they want to do, as well as those who just want to kind of plug and play. But again, we're going to remind you guys, there is no plug and play for live. Just like we're doing internally, we're going to plug and play and test in sim mode. And we're going to test real simple. We're going to start off real simple, like a baby crawling and then walking and turning into a toddler. And then we're going to turn on more accounts and really, really kind of test it before it's turned loose, of course. Thanks, David. All right, let me make sure I didn't miss any questions here. All right, cool. Yeah, looks like I'm caught up. Again, I was ranting and rambling a little bit. For those that are tuning in for Dan today, I don't have a lot of Money Machine updates other than what I just told you. And he's on vacation with his family right now, and so I'm just kind of doing my thing. I'll be here tomorrow as well. So I've always got kind of more of a seasoned veteran trader approach to help people with scans if you want. Definitely trade idea support. We're always here for that. But I'm a swing trader, so I'm kind of trying to nimbly get in and get out on weakness, to get in and get out on strength over the course of a few days. The stocks breathe. That's my niche. But stack really speaks the story. We had a gap breakout, which could be, in hindsight, we don't know. We can call those breakaway gaps. We don't know. The only way to call them a breakaway gap is if it doesn't turn around and get filled. I kind of thought Tesla was a breakaway gap, but it turns out, it wasn't much of a gap, very slight gap, but it got filled. And so now those of you who listen to me a lot know that this is my bread and butter right here. This is where the rubber meets the road. When something sells off like this and it tries to bounce, if it can't back and recover, this declining 10 SMA here on my 15 chart, the sellers are still in control. So for the moment, the sellers are still in control there. I need to see a green candle pop back up in this area. Keep developing 5 to 10 solid strategies. Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely going to put together a list of ideas, and that will probably come from us internally testing. I mean, we'll definitely have a document we will share and say, hey, wow, this is my favorite. This is my favorite. This is working well. So from that testing internally, we'll be able to do that exactly, kind of create some starting points that gave us good results, and then turn the technology loose on you guys. So that brings me into my favorite trade of the day. It was actually the trade of the week, but I was a week early back here. But what did I like about this sim? Well, when somebody sends me a new symbol, the first thing I do is I go, what is it? Symbotic. Oh, Symbotic. That sounds interesting. Oh, automation technology. I'm down with that. Robotics, you got me. I'm sold. The chart, beautiful. And then here's just the cherry on top right there. Oops. 42%, 40% short. And I double checked this. It is really, in fact, 40% short of 80 million. So one, I love the sector because I'm super bullish on Tesla now with automation and robotics. And I've got a couple of drone plays I think are coming to life. I'll show you those in a second. But I got interested yesterday, didn't participate. I was out of town, and then watched a pullback, boom, boom. And then yesterday I said, I'm going to start to nibble on this. I'm sorry, here's yesterday. I started to nibble on it yesterday in this weakness. Rode a small loser into the close, but added on the open. And this is coming to life. The 40% that are short, look at this beautiful chart. Nice chart. I'd hate to be short this. when you know everybody else in the world is short. And then so usually kind of 3 days of pullback is kind of my rule of thumb. 2 never really seems to work. 3 or 4 days seems to be the magic number of red candle pullbacks. You get the rising 10 SMA. And when they don't even touch the 10 SMA, like so far so good, that's even a stronger indicator of strength, which takes me back to 40% short. I think we're starting to see maybe the beginning. Maybe this was stage 1. We could have pulled back and we could see stage 2 of a short squeeze. Now, guarantee I've positioned myself down here. Guarantee I will be a seller just above this blue line. Because what happens above this blue line, the panic of the shorts kick in even more. The newbie FOMO chasers come in, and you can get deals done real quick up here. So I've already got my trading plan in this thing. And when I do that, I'll probably just sell a third and see what happens. I prefer the 10 SMA. I also use the 20. The 20 here is in red on the daily. So I'm using it on the daily. And I don't use it on the intraday. I used to, but I'm finding that my intraday 15-minute is much more interesting to me the less complicated I make it. So what I've got, that blue line there, I haven't talked about much yet, but some of you know, is the 5-day moving average. It's a 5-day. It's not a 15. It's actually 130 candle moving average, because 130 candles divided into 5 days is perfectly 15-minute candles. I didn't do that math right. I should have divided it. But the point being, 5 days has 130 15-minute candles. And so I can smooth that line out. Yeah, I could draw it on the daily, but look at this. If I draw the 5-minute on the daily, it's just going to be another line before you know it. I'll get like a vascular system on my daily chart. I don't need to see all that. So I can move it on over into the window of the 5-day, the 15-minute, excuse me, and I get much more areas of interest. You know, I told Andy this morning that Tesla's probably going to overshoot that 5-day, and it did. And so that told me, oof, okay, this is some serious selling. I expected, because as we pulled into here on this morning, I expected, oh, don't worry, the buyers will probably show up there. As you can tell, I'm long and I'm not getting out, but so the buyers might show up here, and then they didn't. I go, okay, what's going on? So I pull up the news. Oh, okay, well, weak European auto sales. All right, well, let's just let that work itself out. See how we close at the end of the day. I mean, I pretty much bought it right there pre-market. So I've ridden a nice winner into a flat, but I'm laughing because I never would have sold that green candle. I didn't know these 2 red candles were going to pile on. That's pretty brutal. So I'm kind of devolving from the swing trader mentality on this one. I was saying earlier, I'm really, really bullish on Tesla. After watching that robo-taxi thing in Austin, if you guys didn't see it, and just understanding the Optimus robot and how far they've come along with that and how soon it's going to be out and how ubiquitous I think they're going to be in 5 years. I think it might be one of the biggest products ever because they're doing it right. So I'm super bullish on Tesla. I'm looking to hold that one longer than a swing trade. It feels like Tesla is only bouncing a little bit because of covering shorts instead of new buyers. Well, I just gave you my bull case, Patrick. I know you and I are on the same page usually. Why did I like? I mean, let's see if I can frame the chart. I mean, this was just, it was setting up so perfectly. What did I see? I'm a visual person. I'm not a data guy. I'm a visual person. This is what I saw. Perfect. This is what I saw. All right, we had a beautiful move here, and this is a healthy move. This was perfectly to be expected. Bounce up, and then a sideways little cupping of the hand, kind of a bird kind of growing and getting ready to take flight. That was a beautiful setup, and it went into the weekend looking like that. And then I saw over the weekend, oh my God, this robo-taxi thing is really cool. All these videos I'm seeing are pretty cool. Maybe I should look to get up early and buy Tesla pre-market, and I did. So pretty much and just a little bit underwater right here, but I want to see how we close. So that's my sermon and my game plan on Tesla. What's up, Noir? What are your thoughts and timeframes? Are you always tied to the 15? Yes, I started off as a day trader, so I was tied to the 5 in the daily. I had 5, 15 in the daily. Now, I will occasionally, like, I haven't done this, but I can say, let me just pull up maybe a different time frame chart here. Where is it? This guy. Why won't that pop up? That's weird. That's odd. I'll pull up some daily charts. There we go. I'll pull up maybe like a 60-minute sometimes, and then maybe overlay the trade wave on it, just to kind of see where we are. I might look at some RSI on the daily if I want to go to a daily. See, I've got some extra indicators on this one. I might look for overbought, oversold, or divergence. Let me give you an example of divergence. See how back here the RSI kept making higher lows? It was the underpinnings of a bottom being built. So Tesla was flat, but the underpinnings of the RSI, the relative strength, was showing higher lows, higher base camps. That's what divergence is. So I'll look at that sometimes. But time frames, 15 minutes is my bread and butter. It's just my go-to. Why did this just go? Pull that back up. And so right now I'm still seeing Tesla a bit under pressure, but that doesn't mean I'm going to do anything. It's just kind of giving me the weather forecast currently of what Tesla's going through. By the end of the day, maybe it kind of breaks away from that news and the selling is done, and it comes back through there, and I say, okay, the momentum has been broken. The downside momentum, which started right here, bam, 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 bam. It's like these people knew something. These sellers wanted out. Then the news came. Phew, oversold. We get an oversold bounce, and my indicator comes into play perfectly. The last 45 minutes has shown me the sellers still want control. And that's where we are. At any given moment before now in the close, Tesla could pop a green candle on me. And then my internal voice says, okay, the downside momentum has been broken. So that's kind of how I use a simple set of indicators, but I don't panic out just because it runs and breaks through something. It just kind of tells me where we are. This is just the zoomed in version. I'm always going to go back and go, okay, what's worst case scenario here? I'm certainly not going to like it if it goes back to lows. And if it does, I'd probably sell half and maybe look to reposition. But coming up underneath on the daily is two giant, the 200-day and the 50-day moving average coming up to converge. So Tesla just may slop around for a few days. And that was a slow false breakout, but it might have to regather itself. As we're speaking, it's quietly trying to give me a closing candle. So, I mean, we're still 12 minutes away, but if this thing turns around and closes at 326, then this candle right here could be the one where the sellers lost their downside momentum. That's all I'm thinking. So, yep, Jim, and anybody else that came along looking for Dan, I mentioned earlier, and I had no problem repeating it. I have no timelines, but where we are internally is this. My account and a couple of Chris and Andy and our accounts are configured and ready to go, and they're all pointing towards the right sim trading server that's being built out. And there's a few more switches and things that need to be done before we connect. And then when we do connect, what that means is internally, we're going to slowly start applying some sim trades. Personally, me, I just might attach this short squeeze thing and say, look at these these 3 giant moves. I want to be in the top 3 short squeezers. And trust me, guys, I'll share this. This is somebody asked earlier, can we use these? Yeah, I mean, we'll give these out. So, 2-prong. One, we're testing for effectiveness of strategy, but 2, we're testing and looking for bugs. And so, we're selling off a little bit. And so that's coming in the next couple days. I'm just waiting for them to turn on their end. And what's happened is, Jim, there's just been a lot of not only unforeseen hiccups, but also additional features that just had to be added. So the proof of concept has always been there. And now we're at the simulation stage where internally we're going to start, kicking the tires and seeing what we got. And we'll report back, of course, and Dan will report back. Dan's been testing it not only with Sim, but live as well on a company account. But the point of the next level is to try and scale up. And so the server that's being re-architected, which wasn't anticipated, so that was one of the major issues, a complete rebuilding of a new trading server from the ground up, which just needs to be done. Do it the right way. Plant the tree so the tree works. And go from there, Jim. So it'll be a couple weeks of internal testing, and then once that is done, it'll be in the next beta version. But we need to kind of use test it and see if we can break it and see what the loads are and how many people it can accept at once, and let the guys on the back end redesign the plumbing so it's ready to go. And when I say ready to go, again, that means in beta version where everybody can simulate it and start to apply that to your scans or your logic. And then, of course, we'll have a template of other ideas. For an entry point on Tesla now, would you wait until the 5-day is pierced? So that's a great question. What I would do is I would anticipate, he's saying, if the first green candle closes above, and it's still, look at it, still playing games with us here, but if it does, what I would do is I would say, okay, that might be the worst of it. Now, what does that mean for a trade idea? Well, maybe take half. And you know that pretty much if it works, you've got a date with this. And at this level, I would wait and watch, and maybe it stutters around. And if it closes above that, that to me would be like a decent entry. So then I would add the second half. So I'm kind of using those 2 indicators in stages for an entry. And I do the same thing for exits as well. If you were a very short-term minded, I just want to romp through the forest and bonk a couple rabbits on the head and throw them in my bag, well, then you could just wait for that first closing candle, go 100%, put a stop below the low of that candle, and then just put your sell order in and make that your intraday scalp target. There's 2 ways you could play that, but in both scenarios, I'm using those levels and a touch of those indicators to determine how I want to play, either longer term, so I'd buy half, wait for confirmation. If it pushed through, then, the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. And by bigger the risk, I mean, how long do you want to sit in it? So a lot of people can't stand sitting in something that ran and then it's pulling back on them. So they would load up here. And when I say that, we've got 7 minutes to say, is this candle going to close? And that's another key indicator. I got to remind people that haven't heard me talk about these. A simple tick or trade below or above means nothing to me. It's where's the close? And technically speaking, this last 15-minute candle is just closing at or on the line. Same here, same here. But all of a sudden, if this little wick holds, we pop up to like 326 and have a little bit of a green body, and it becomes 12:30 Eastern at that moment, and we get a close. It's the closing candle of the 15-minute period that I've kind of really honed in on that works well with especially the 10 SMA. Because the whole idea is, how can I be early but still kind of feel like the odds are in my favor? And that's what I've come to learn. And the same thing goes being in a trade. You guys have heard me say, I won't let a quick little bounce and a tail below a rising moving average in a profitable trade get me out. I'll go, oh, there's still 3 minutes left. Let's see what. And then more often than not, if I just stayed in that trade, in hindsight, I go, yeah, I should not have panicked out. I should have waited for the close. There's a hint of green there, and we still got 5 minutes to go. So, it would still be too early. This thing could just roll right back down, and the sellers could get control, and you'd go, oh, I should have waited for the closing candle. But that, to me, I've tried, try to define some at least, simple black and white area lines, and that being one of them. Just wait for the closing candle. Apologies. Oh no, what'd you do? Okay, I'll get to that one. Hello, Jason Taylor. Quick question about your short squeeze. There is a stock, and that's not showing up. I believe it's because the float. Let's take a look. EYEL. I'm not even seeing that. GTCK. I'm not even seeing that. So for whatever reason, those aren't showing up as symbols, period. Okay. EYEN. Here we go. Float 4.2. It's not showing up on short squeeze scan. Let's see. I'm going to do it this way. I renamed it for the, this is the short squeeze, but if I just put 50% in here, I'm sorry, not 50 score, stock composite rating of 80. Again, I renamed this one pain because we're back in a bull market kind of where, well, yeah, we are, and where shorts are getting murdered. And I'll check back on SYM in a second, but if I change that to just a neutral 50, something pretty low, and click OK, I should have those names on there. So let me sort by alphabetical. Okay, it's not on there. Profile. This is NASDAQ. Configure. No, short float percent. Oh, that would be why. I didn't even look at that. I just wanted to start at the top level, 2.15%. So if our data is incorrect, you can let me know. And that's the reason why it didn't show up on the scan. And then GCTK, 4.5%. So those aren't going to show up. They need to be a minimum of 20%. That's going to be the reason why. Speaking of, check my trade in SYM here. Not bad. Still decent. So here's a winner, right? Here's one that's just working for me. And the hardest part sometimes is just sitting on your hands, but I feel like there's a date with that blue line. So I'm just going to let it bounce around and see what happens. Hello. Okay, I'm all caught up, I believe. I know, Jim, there's been a lot of people. Yep. I've got to basically kind of shuck and jive for Dan. It started off as proof of concept, and there's been a lot of improvements and hurdles along the way. All right, net trade. Can I go? Yeah, the 5-day moving average is, anybody can make it. An indicator, you just grab a simple moving average. Right there, moving average, and then you add it, and then the value is 130. And that's it. And then it just gives you the ability to see a 5-day moving average in a much better time perspective. Look at how it just clung to that at the close on this day. Then it gapped down below it. It's coming back up. It'll probably find sellers right here. If I was long, this AGQ silver, which I was yesterday. I should have never got out. Could have put that. All right. You're welcome. Why did I put the blue line there at the top of SIM? Because it's a great example of contrarian trading. This is a prior high. And so the stock broke out on volume. It could only go so far before, the greed and profit taking, and fear kicks in. And then we usually get 3 to 4 days of red or pullback. And I like that. So contrarian means wait for the 3 or 4 days of pullback and then take a chance and just draw a line in the sand. And I took it home yesterday. But I love the trend. I love the short squeeze, 40%. And so being contrarian, you're buying when they're selling in panic, giving up their shares. This is what all the algorithms are programmed to do. You just got to program your mind to do it. Prior high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. This is a daily chart over here. So this is day one. And sometimes it only takes a day and a half. There's something about that. Like day one is just go day. Day two is follow through day, either through a gap or trading at the open. And then that second day of momentum starts to run out of steam at lunchtime. But you can get a lot of movement in a day and a half. And that's basically my target time frame. If I can position myself and be patient even and have to wait, once I get that explosive day and a half, I know that, lunchtime on day two, everybody's starting to look at each other. And that's when it's a perfect example right here. That's when this 10 SMA starts to come into play. After a day and a half, I'm watching that thing real close. And usually the first closing candle, I'm out. And I'm usually right in terms of getting out early after a good run. So, it's like being a good golfer. You got to have a good driver. You got to have a good sand wedge. You got to know how to get out of the rough. There's not just one skill set at trading. There's entries, there's exits, there's managing horrible news events that don't go your way. What do you do when everything goes to hell? Because that'll happen. Is Dan sick? Well, he's sick of his desk. He's on vacation with his family. His kids are out of school, so it's perfect time for them to do a week family vacation. Let's see. Here we go. How would you make a scan alert for 2 green 15-minute candles that are being made at or below the bottom Bollinger Band? It's a great one. Perfect. I love this question, Jay. This gives everybody a chance to kind of see how you walk through something. So we would just go new alert window. I wonder if we could do, let's try just a top list instead. And let's grab our search, and our first two are going to be Bollinger Bands of the 15-minute type. So we'll add that. And then we also wanted consecutive candles, 15-minute. Add that filter. All right, so minimum 2 15-minute consecutives and position in Bollinger Bands. So 0 is the bottom band of a 15-minute band. 100 would be the upper band of a 15-minute band. You want something at or below the bottom. Well, I could put 0 in max, and that would be at or below the bottom, but I don't know if we're going to find a whole lot. So maybe we loosen that up a little bit and say no more than 5%. With 2 15-minute candles, that could be a lot. And then let's just see. Let's hide the unused and clean it up. Average daily volume today. We can probably put volume today in there. At least 100,000 shares. Average daily volume. That's fine. Let's see if we get anything. We get one trade, NTR. And it happened back here, I think. Let's see, when did that happen? Let's go back in time a little bit. Nothing. Let's open up the filters a little bit. Don't seem right. Stock was up at least 2 candles. Bollinger Band. Huh. Well, just for fun, for my own. Oh yeah, there's Tesla. It did close, so it's kind of sitting in its little pocket now. That's not bad. That could be an entry. Let's just look through some of these here. But why is it giving me 15-minute candles? Those don't look right. I guess it would be the prior. So I'm going to scrap the top list. I don't think that's what we wanted. Probably could have just saved that. But let's do this instead. Consecutive candles sometimes work better when they're slower, but let's try the new 15-minute high. As the event. I don't need all this. Okay. Bollinger Band. No more than 10% above the lower band. Okay. And then consecutive candle. 2. Does this give us anything? That's kind of what I more expected to see. Yep, this is kind of what I think you were more expecting to see too. So a lot of these happened earlier on the open, but I'll put that on real time and I'll just give that to you and move on. So I'll drop the link of that config in there that I just made. You see your orders and executions for the week. Well, let's see. I don't know if you're going to see them for the prior day executions. I've not done anything in here today, so let's see. There is something. Let me see if that still works. Trying to remember how to get there. Daily profit and loss, but that's for the day. I'm trying to recall how we get that. What date was this? This was today. Anything come to mind for you on? I forgot how to look at. There used to be a calendar tab, but I don't know if that was working well. Yeah, daily. No, I know that's probably a broken record that's being built out. This is going to be replaced by what's being built out um, slowly. Calendar tab was, yeah, it wasn't working. That's right. So it was brought down. That's why I can't find it. I know it's not the ideal answer, but if you're looking for a history of past trades, I don't know if it's going to be right there on one fell swoop. You might just have to grab that data at the end of each day and scrape it that way. SYM's still working for me. I didn't even talk about the drones yet. Let me get into that. This is, I don't know. This is something I've observed. There's something going on in drone land. Um, you can see back here a couple weeks ago, a bunch of volume came into ONDS and UAVS right there. Bang. UMAC. Bang. Volume. We're in the give back mode here. And then RCAT. That's four names right there. They all kind of quickly came to life. It almost seems like prices preceding news or some sort of headline that's coming out. So I've been sitting in a couple, and ONDS has been doing the best, and I'm likely going to take these home. The AI script crashed. It's a decent looking chart. Yep. So the calendar feature is not working. It's another reason that's a new platform is being built out on that. Again, I know that's not the answer you want to hear, but that's the only answer I've got. These nano nukes are just a real pain lately. But anyway, I'm going to take home this UAVS again. See, I'm watching it now and it's approaching this declining 5 day. So I'm starting to tell myself, here comes the first real test of this thing. The script to capture the historical data in AI. Let's take a look. History, all last 60 days. If you haven't tried that route, there's the last 60 days of trading data in the AI module. No filter, history, all last 60 days. Oops. All right. What was the other one? UMAC. All right, so this UMAC didn't really care for the selling from the open, but I had to go and look at the daily, and it came and touched the 20 day. So that's my low. So now I've got to give myself a stop. If it comes back and trades below the low of today's candle, I'm out of this one. I did not. Thank you for repeating it. Let's reverse. Ah, there you are. Okay, asking because you entered Nectar yesterday on the open, trying to decide when to exit a swing trader. Okay, so thank you for the detailed information. Okay, a couple things. Let's go back and zoom in time. If you entered yesterday at 17, that's quite an impressive entry. Well done. Okay, so this might even come into play what I was just talking about, right? A day and a half. Were you hearing my sermon on the day and a half, the life of momentum? First off, I wanted to highlight this. Anything that gaps up and then turns around and creates that U pattern and takes out highs on volume, that's a go signal. That's sit on your hands. If you're positioned and you got that, don't touch it. And then you wait and you see what's happening. Oh, look at that. Moving average test. Held. Never broke the moving average. Tried to break the moving average. It never closed. Another example of what I've just been preaching. So now we're into the midday of day 2. Technically speaking, what I was just talking about at the close of this candle, which would be right there, I would have been out. We'll call it 31.43-ish. And even though we're upticking, we're still below that. So the close of that, I would have gotten out at 31.43. And that's a great, unbelievably timely, perfect example that you just gave that allowed me to show you the anatomy of a 1.5 day momentum squeeze. Nice. Yeah. Oh, you know what? Here's what I would do. Like, if you're just looking at it now, you're like, okay, well, I don't need to pound out of it now. There's always a chance it can go back, but the worst case possible is 30.47. You know, you could at least give it a test. And if it slams back up to the underside, chances are if it slams back up to the underside, that could be a good place to sell too. So you can kind of bracket that. So I get kind of weird like that with myself. Sometimes I'll just pound out and take the profit, but I'll go, well, you know, I've ridden it lower. You know, maybe I just put a stop order in there at a new low below 30.38 and see what happens. Just a thought. I've been known to do things like that. But me personally, watching this, I would have said, man, everything lined up. It gave me a U-shaped, I call that a horseshoe, exploded through with volume, never broke day 1, tried to test, but didn't break day 2. We got into midday day 2, first closing candle, I'm out. And technically speaking, we're just trading at that spot right now as I speak. So great timely question. There you go. So you got to be happy with that. I mean, you got the majority lion's share chunk out of that. And when I see those things rip, you know, the earlier, older me, you know, 5, 6, 10 years ago would be mad at myself for getting out too soon because, you know, it's the thing you want to do. You're like, oh my God, I just made $4. I got to get out. But as long as the line never breaks, it kind of gives you that guardrail to lean on and not get mad at yourself and just go, okay, let's just see what happens. And then the day and a half thing has been more recent in the last 3 or 4 years. I've just kind of noticed that things that just really rip, they tend to run out of steam in a day and a half. So all those things kind of come together. 31.66. Yeah, I gotcha. Good point. I mean, still a great trade. Nothing really went wrong on that one. Don't look at it if it starts trading higher. Don't try. Okay, here's probably a great best piece of advice I can give you on this one. You just nailed it, right? I nailed Hertz. Brian Shannon gave me Hertz, and I did the same thing. I nailed a day and a half. It was one of my biggest trades all year. Day 1, day 2 was an absolute gift. And I haven't really, I think I went back to it once just to remind myself that you're never going to be as perfect as you were back here. And to try and go back to the well just because you had a good luck and Hertz the first time, that setup is gone. It's like a fleeting moment in time the camera's never going to catch again. except it did sneak into play here yesterday. And this one went almost 2 days. So my advice is don't keep going back to the well thinking you're going to get one of those again. Try and find the next one. And by that, I mean, if you could find that early setup where you're scanning for maybe show me stocks that are gapped up, whatever, 10, 20, 30%, and then are making new lows. And then you just watch them. Okay, they gapped up. Now they're making lows. Okay, they got a little ahead of themselves. But don't lose track of them. This becomes your watch list for the day. And you start to see it turn and head back to highs with volume. That's usually the precursor of a pretty good run. So that's, don't keep going back to Nectar looking for, the good old days. Like you just nailed it. You're probably never going to, I shouldn't say never. You're not going to have a good trade like that again in the next few days, probably. So savor the fact that you nailed that one. And don't keep going back to the same name. Try and find that same setup in a new name. Yeah, the low volume to start with. And then, I mean, what was it doing? It's still doing 30 times. So it's doing 30 times relative volume. That's another thing. Just real quick. Let's just for fun before I leave, because I have a few minutes here. What if we do a few things here? Remember I said new low? Let's make that our alert. But these are going to be new lows of stocks that are just exploding with relative volume. Say anything at 20 or more we want to see. Price, we can start with stuff that's maybe $2. You can cap it at 100 if you want. Relative volume takes care of volume. So we really don't probably need anything else. And then the gap that we're going to put in, gap and relative volume pretty much satisfy everything we need. And you could start with something like maybe 10% and go from there. Just keep this really simple. So let's just gap and crap, we'll call this. But the idea is don't lose track of these names, because what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the history of today and see what if we were tracking these names and they pulled back to either the 10 SMA or they turned and went to highs. But we got to keep an eye on them. So we'll go to history a little earlier today. Start looking at some of these names that were coming through. That would be an example of one that never did anything. So there's no point in watching that one. Okay, that one's pretty thin volume. We didn't put a volume in there. I want to put a little bit more volume in there for today. I spoke too soon about the relative volume. Volume today. Add filter. I want to see at least 500,000 shares. That should get us in the ballpark. All right, this one's interesting. So I said there's two scenarios you can play off of these. You're watching, you saw QS making new lows, but all of a sudden, that new low that QS made for the 50th time, what did it do? It made it right at the 10 SMA. I'll say to you, that can be a day trading entry. And in this case, it kind of worked. So rather than waiting for something to turn and go to highs, it had a pretty precipitous drop. What I'll do a lot of times is if I'm watching something that gapped up and I want to add to it or whatever, I'll use that pullback to the rising 10 SMA where the price and the 10 SMA converge. It's usually an interesting spot. to add or whatever you want to do. ULY. Same thing on this one. It's kind of sloppy, but it worked. We already looked at QS. That one's ugly. XBio didn't do anything good. There's that GCTK someone was asking about. And see, this one failed. So here's an example where if you tried that, you're like, wow, look at this. I want to buy this candle right there because it's leaning on the 10 SMA. Well, the very next candle is a closing candle below. That should save you agony and just go, nope, this one's not going to do it. It should have bounced if it was going to bounce. And that's all that one has on there. We could probably try something. Oh, BBAI was on there. That's interesting. But it was on early. One thing you could do to loosen it up a little bit would be maybe make it a 5% gap. I'd bring in some more names. I think that's a new one. That didn't work. Nothing's fail safe, but all I'm showing you guys is how you can create just a watch list of ideas from a simple concept. And we talked about that one already. So since I gave that one a name and all, I can go ahead and just drop that for anybody that cares to modify it or play with it. But I'm coming off a cold and traveling, so my voice is just about shot. So I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. Thanks for expecting the fact that Dan might be here, but he wasn't. So I'll be here tomorrow again. We'll talk about the same stuff or whatever else you guys want to talk about, scan-wise and such. But I'm going to sign off now, and I'll see you tomorrow. If you got a question, I'll be here tomorrow. Bye.